Hi, this is Jason from Elusive Disc. We're here for our Analog Basics series, and today we're looking at the anatomy of a turntable. If you want more advice on your analog system, take a look at our other videos linked in the description below in this series. So today we're going to be looking at, like I said, the anatomy of a turntable. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is plinth. So we have two examples here. We have a Music Hall MMF 1.3 and we have a Clear Audio Concept. And the plinth on any turntable is the largest part. And we see here this is a rectangular plinth and this is a more of a rounded plinth. And these plinths can be made from different materials such as wood, carbon fiber, metal, some sort of a composite, an MDF plinth. There's all kinds of options. And traditionally the bigger the plinth, the bigger the platter, the better it is for the table, the better resonance it has, the better control it has. However, these two tables here we're going to look at today, this is the 1.3. This is a really good kind of entry-level table. Comes with the cartridge pre-installed. We highly recommend that for someone new into vinyl. And this is a Clear Audio Concept, which has a little bit different. You can get a different arm, you can upgrade your cartridge, has some different things. This is definitely an audiophile table for sure. Back to the plinth. So the plinth has everything attached to the table is attached to the plinth in some way. You kind of start at the feet and you work your way up. So it's a very important piece. So attached to there, we have the platter. So this is the thing, and we put the record on and the record spins. So the platter is very important. Again, thicker the platter typically is better. We have a metal platter here and it has a nice mat on it. And then we have a Delrin platter here, which is nice and thick. Now, from the platter, what do you put the record on? Well, you put it on this spindle. You guys have all heard the word spindle before, but if you take your record, you hold it up, there's a big hole in it. Well, that's what the record goes on. So you put the record down on this spindle, and then it becomes kind of part of the platter. So in order to get the best sound, we really recommend that you clamp the record down to the platter. It kind of makes it all, make it all one piece, and then when you're spinning it, it does a better job. All right, now we have the record on the platter. We have the clamp on there, making sure it's on there nice and good. What's next? Well, how does it spin? Well, it spins a couple ways. So every table is going to have some sort of power source, so it's going to have a motor. These two tables happen to have internal motors. You can also have an external motor as well. Just depends on what the manufacturer likes the best. These both have an internal DC motor. So DC stands for direct current. So these run off of voltage, and they have typically a little wall wart you plug in, plugs into the wall, and they run very, very smoothly. They can be a little finicky, but don't worry about that. All motors can be like that a little bit. Now, if you have an AC synchronous motor, which stands for alternating current, that will lock onto the frequency of the line, and they're known to be very, very stable. So it'll run very well, keep its speed, no worries there. So once you have the motor plugged in, what spins the actual platter? Well, most tables spin with a belt. Now, there is a direct drive, that's an option, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to be looking at these belts. So, and you can see here there's a sub platter, there's a little belt which runs over this pulley, and it spins. Now, there are certain tables that have belts that are visible, and they have a little pulley externally, and you can just swap it between 33 and 45. These two tables have a nice advantage. They actually have the controls right here. You can go 33, 45, all the way up to 78. So if you have any 78s and you want to enjoy them still, then get one of these tables that has the ability to run 78s, because they all don't have that ability. Now that we have the platter spinning and we have it spinning at the proper speed, we're going to look at how do we get the sound out of the record. So we're going to use this as a tone arm. Every turntable is going to have a tone arm, and a tone arm has multiple parts, so we're going to talk about those parts. But this kind of thing, the whole thing is called a tone arm. So we're going to move the tone arm in its position just kind of over the platter here. But we're going to talk next about how do you get the cartridge down there. And so every one has this device which we call a lifter or a cue device. So this will put the cartridge down to the record, and alternatively it will pick it back up as well. So when you're listening, highly recommend using this. That's what it's there for. When you're done, use this to pick it up. Don't put it down manually. You can damage your record, damage your cartridge, which no one wants. Now, speaking of cartridges, on both of these arms, there's a cartridge. So this is what the sound comes through when you're listening to a record. It's going to come in to this, and it's going to work its way through. There's little wires that come out, and it's going to come through this arm, and it's come out the back, and then from there, depending on the table, there's either a box in the back you plug into, or there's wires that come out that are hardwired. Now, this table here has a cartridge pre-installed, and like I said earlier, this one, we put something on there ourselves, and you have that option depending on what table you're looking at. So the phono cartridge, so again, we're going to put this back over here. So the phono cartridge will pick up this signal coming from the record, but it's not going to do it if you don't have the tracking force set correctly. So what is tracking force? So when you're lowering the cartridge down to the record, there's force that comes from that. And you think of this kind of like a fulcrum. So you've got a point, and if you have it too much on one end, it's going to be hitting too hard. So you have to counterbalance that on the back. So that's where the counterweight comes in. So the tracking force of a cartridge typically is between 1 and 3 grams. So every manufacturer will recommend a tracking force for a cartridge. Usually kind of goes in half-gram increments. So let's just say this one recommends at 2.0 grams. So if you buy this table here, or have a table like this, there is a dial on the back of this counterweight. So the counterweight counteracts that force. So you can turn it and set it exactly where it needs to be. And I have it set here at 1.5. So we're going to set it here at 2 grams. So done. So the tracking force is set properly. It will track at 2 grams. Now, what if it tracks at 3 grams? What can happen? Well, it's tracking too heavy. So again, you can damage your cartridge or the record. And what if you have this set at 1 gram? Well, the record can skip. You put the cartridge on there, it cannot track right. And you want to be able to hear your favorite songs how they're meant to be. You don't want it skipping around. Now, if we look at this table here, this is Clear Audio. This counterweight doesn't have any numbers on it. So how do we know what the tracking force is? Well, we highly recommend you use a digital tracking force gauge. So this will read out digitally what the tracking force is. So when you go to set the tracking force on this, you can set it properly. It's got a little bullseye here. So you get the cartridge lined up and you lower this down, it'll read out the tracking force. So if you have it too high or too low, you can properly set it. So you want to move the counterweight up. If it's not enough, that'll increase the tracking force because there's more weight. And you move it back, it's going to be less because there's more weight coming back and it's not going to track as heavy. All right, so now that we have that done and you're listening to your album, but it still doesn't seem like it's tracking quite right, could there be anything else that could be causing a problem? Actually, there can. It's called anti-skating. So when you're listening to a record, the cartridge just wants to keep going in towards the middle of the record because it's just what it wants to do. So you have to counteract that force with anti-skating, which is where that comes in. So this table here has a little anti-skating knob that you can turn, and that will increase or decrease the anti-skating if it's not tracking right. And we want to make sure that it tracks well. And this one has an adjustment as well. And unfortunately, we can't really show you that, but it's underneath the arm here, and it's very similar to this. You just turn it a little bit, and you can turn it counterclockwise or clockwise, and it'll be correct. All right, to summarize, we went over the anatomy of these two turntables today, and there are lots of different options. Again, we really recommend for someone getting new into analog to get one of these tables that has a cartridge pre-installed and has kind of a lot of these things already decided for you. But in the future, you can do more of an upgrade. You can get a table with bigger plinth, a better arm, bigger platter, bigger feet, better dampening. All these things come with kind of the more expensive audiophile tables, and they really are big upgrades. So once you get more used to this, you kind of understand what you like and what you want, you can definitely upgrade to something else in the future. So if you enjoyed this video and learning some more about analog basics, please take a look at other videos in the description. And should you have any questions about this video or anything else, please get a hold of us. We'll be happy to help. Thank you.